Hi everyone, it's Evangeline here at etrailer, and today we'll be taking a look at our Hollywood Racks RV Rider 2-bike platform rack right here on our 2020 Thor Coleman Motorhome. So this is an awesome bike rack if you have your extra heavy bikes, you have your extra wide fat tires, really anything you can ask of. This has the top when it comes to the specs, especially for something rated for the back of an RV or a motorhome, with a weight capacity of 80 pounds per bike, wheelbase of 60 inches, as well as that RV capability. There's a lot to this bike rack, so we'll take a look at this video just to see if it's the right fit for your bikes as well as your Coleman motorhome. With this being on a motorhome, it's going to be a little different compared to if you have it on your vehicle. So one of the features it has is that you can tilt it away. If you just take that clip, that pin out, you can then just tilt it downwards. In our case here, not going to be as big of an issue or as big of a feature. So we'll take a look at everything else. The way our bike is mounted to this bike rack is we have two wheel straps holding down your wheels, and then we have this frame mount. So this frame mount has a unique design in that it's basically just a clamp compared to Hollywood Rack's other features, which is that it is a they usually have hooks like the Sport Rider SE. This one has that clamp, so if you do have an alternate frame bike, let's say you have a step-through bike, you can very easily just attach the bike right over by the seat post instead of over by the frame, meaning you don't need a frame adapter bar, and you can utilize the locks on these. So before we take our bike off, I just want to point out how this clamp works. So it is kind of tricky. That is the downside to the RV Rider. You get lots of specs, but you also get a lot of features that you need to work around. So you have this clamp, this and this knob at the end. So by rotating the knob, you can open or tighten down the clamp. And to adjust the knob up and down, you push in on that, then you lift it up and down, and then you let go in order to lock it into place. So as you use your bikes, you may have to take some time just to find the best configuration for your frame on this bike rack. To take our bike off, we need to start at the wheel strap. So you just press this button or this lever right over here and pull that strap up, and then leave it over to the side so it's not tangled up in your spokes. With this out of the way, we can now take off our bike. So follow the instructions I gave earlier for the frame. So you may have to loosen it, make sure that it's unlocked. And once it's loose, you can then kind of just move this out of the way. So I'm just gonna swing our mount out this way, and the perks of having this on a motorhome is that you have a little bit more wiggle room towards the back. If you don't have it on your vehicle, you can just bring this mast down in order to give yourself some extra space. But all I need to do is just kind of tilt it back towards that and then just lift this up and then out. If you do maximize the weight capacity of this bike rack though at 80 pounds, it could be kind of tricky to lift an 80-pound bike out of the way, so I highly recommend lowering the mast in that situation. With the bike off, we can now take a closer look at the bike rack itself. I do recommend putting the straps back just so they're nice and neat and not flopping around as you have your RV or motorhome parked. So notice how this uses loops instead of your standard cradles, and the maximum tire width this can accommodate is up to 5-inch wide tires, so your fat bikes are perfectly fine. You can also adjust those wheel loops as needed for your different wheelbases. So just loosen this knob and then slide this back and forth, and then tighten it back down. The maximum wheelbase this can carry is up to 60-inch long wheelbase bikes. With this behind your vehicle, there's going to be some length added to the back of it. Probably not going to be as big of a deal since you already have a larger than usual vehicle, but we'll take those measurements just in case. Measuring from the end of our bumper to the end of the bike rack, which is right over here, it sits at 29.5 inches. And if you want to take your bike rack off and store it in your garage, or if you just want to make this a bit more compact when you're not carrying around your bikes, let's say you've parked at your campsite and you just want to go, what you can do is that you can lower this mast first. So by rotating this knob all the way out, that should loosen it. This tilts that down. There we go. Don't forget to tighten it back down in the folded position. So now what you need to do in order to fold it up is you have this larger knob right over here. Make sure to hold that back in so that it actually loosens out. And with that knob out of the way, what I like to do is just to use that to push out your pin, hold that, and then lift up on the bike rack. It won't fold up all the way into a vertical position, which is perfectly fine since it has a stopper. And then just pop that pin back in and then use the knob to tighten that down. Now let's take some measurements with it folded up like this. Closest point is now going to be with this tilted towards your bumper. From the bumper to that mast, about 4 inches of clearance. Now from the bumper where we measured earlier to the end of the bike rack, which is going to be pretty much by this plate, it sits at 14.5 inches. So big difference compared to when this is folded down. You'll want this if you want this to be a bit neat behind your vehicle, or also if you want to store it in your garage. So this has a 2-inch shank, which fits into your 2-inch hitch receiver. Please make sure you have the right type of hitch. Your Coleman Motorhome does have it because it is attached to the frame. So you have that support or that weight capacity. Now we also have an anti-rattle bolt, which feeds into the hitch receiver and into your shank. So since this is a heavier bike rack, I recommend doing what I do, which is I use the etrailer hitch pin alignment collar just to make sure it's always at the right spot. I'm not leaning over all the time, and I use a 3/4 inch socket wrench just to tighten it down, so much easier that way. To simulate what the anti-rattle bolt does, as I shake our bike rack, it's gonna simulate that road vibration. I'm really just moving the motorhome at this point, which is pretty cool. But it also shows that there is not extra rattle from an improper fit between our bike rack and our hitch. So my personal thoughts about the Hollywood Racks RV Rider is, if you have that extra heavy bike, or if you have the extra long wheelbase and you really need a bike rack for it for the back of your Coleman motorhome, this might be a pretty good option for you. When it comes to ease of use though, there's a bunch of different knobs, a bunch of different levers. It's kind of hard to put it onto the bike rack itself, so something definitely worth considering. Another tip from me to you is please take off the battery off of your electric bikes as you carry them behind your RV, just because that road vibration and stress is not good for electric bike batteries and you want them to last longer. So if your bikes are not as heavy though, and they don't require the 80-pound weight capacity, something definitely worth considering that might be easier to use is the Yakima on-ramp. It has a ramp that allows you to ramp it up onto your Coleman motorhome, but it does have a 40-pound weight capacity on the back of an RV. So you have your different pros, you have your different cons of this bike rack, but hopefully this helped you out with making the decision for what bike rack is the best fit for you and your journey. And that was a look right here at our Hollywood Racks RV Rider 2-bike platform rack here on our 2020 Thor Coleman Motorhome.